probably in a nutshell who I am.
I love this answer. I agree with that. Life is about feelings, about actions, about moments, right? We take with us actually the experiences, these moments with people and whatnot. You certainly connect with people in a beautiful and powerful way. You have a very positive energy, and that's something that is always uplifting somebody. So you, in this case, as a coach, why would somebody pick Fede as their divorce coach? What makes you unique as a coach, Fede?
Well, I think one of the biggest things that I believe is that, again, just going back to, because we live and create memories and everything is about the moments we have. When we go through divorce, what society has actually taught us is that everything, and we see it in the movies, we see it in the news, we see it with celebrities everywhere. It's about hating each other, about fighting, about being this really negative thing. And it's definitely nothing that we celebrate. It's a sad moment, it's a tough moment. But at the end of the day, it's an opportunity. It's an opportunity for growth, for rediscovering ourselves, for becoming better humans, better persons for ourselves and for others, including better partners, even if you're afraid to date or go into another relationship later on. So what I want to promote is the idea that divorce, as society has it, is totally wrong, and it's now different. It's an opportunity for growth. It's a period to reconnecting with yourself. And I think that's what a lot of us lack. So, difference from just being able to know how to handle going to court and, trying to protect yourself from the financial situation. For me, it's about really going through a process, and it's a framework that I have, which is what I call enough. You are enough. And you are enough for yourself to be by yourself and to be able to be with the world. And enough is really looking at it inwards, because the process that you have to go through is first looking at yourself inside, reconnecting with yourself, taking care of the most important relationship in your life, which is the one with yourself. Then from enough, we go inwards, outwards, and forward. Until you're good with yourself, then you can actually look outward, connecting with others, including your ex. And I'm saying including your ex because it means connecting in a way that you can actually allow for a collaborative process, maybe an amicable process, but a process that gives you and your ex the dignity that you both deserve, no matter what happened. The fact that a symphony ended, it doesn't mean that it wasn't worth listening to it. So it's about understanding that you had a moment, you had a period in time when things were working, when things were great. Now they're not. And it's respecting that and just being able to move forward without bringing the baggage across. So when you do that, you're able to then connect in a different way. You're able to appreciate and respect your ex in a different way. And that allows you to work together for a very fair and win-win outcome for both of you, so that you can move forward with your life. And once you're able to do that, now you have the ability, the capacity, and the emotional state and maturity, as well as the mindset, to be able to enjoy life, focus on what's next, thrive, and do whatever you want, and make life the best life in your life, or the best moment in your life. That's the next phase.
Beautifully said. So there is a way to go through divorce without so much pain or anger or resentment, and sometimes or blame, you name it, right? Very low emotions. I love this analogy that you made, comparing like the fact that this is the end of a period now, is the end of this song that we've been playing together. It doesn't mean there was music, and a beautiful music in many cases for many, many years. There were couples married for many years who all of a sudden, or not so all of a sudden, but when this life ends, new things will happen. Thank you for sharing.
Yes, and
oh, sorry.
Do you mind if I say something about that?
Go for it.
Yeah, and I think that's the issue that I take, because I really take it as a personal issue in terms of how society portrays divorce and the people going through divorce, because pretty much everybody knows it, because it's about fighting and hating each other. It's like it's an all or nothing. You either are in a relationship where there's love and we can't live without each other, to the fact that we're different, the fact that, you know, things died and we were not able to maintain it, and the fact that we now need to go our separate ways is about, okay, now I cannot even talk to you. I have to hate you and I have to totally eliminate you from my life, etc. And I'm not saying you're going to be best friends, but the concept in itself is flawed, or it's wrong, because you cannot just part ways from something that at a moment in time was a big, deep, integrating part of your life. And also the concept that people who are divorcing are a failure, because what they say is you failed at your marriage. We have this negative connotation of people who are divorcing are like, oh my God, look at them. It's like, you know, and people, a lot of people have come to me and say, oh, I'm sorry, it didn't work out. And it's like, don't be sorry. You know, why would you be sorry? It happens. Things happen. And, you know, we just need to learn to understand that this process, just like everything else in life, there are things that are going to be there for a certain time. Things change, we change. And if things have to be in a case that we're going a different way, that doesn't mean it's a failure. It means we are getting to know more about ourselves, about what we need, about what our ex needs, or understanding that we're just not compatible, or things have changed because we're not the same person. By the time we're divorcing, we're not the same person we were at the time we got married.
That's it.
Right? There was a period of growth in it as well. So it's totally okay. And please note that I'm not advocating people just go get divorced. But if you're in that stage, and if you're at the point that things are happening or you're going through the process right now, it is okay. And it doesn't mean you're a failure. It means you have an opportunity to do things differently. You have an opportunity to learn from what happened to make it better for yourself. And for the future, if you go into a new relationship, you can go in as a much better partner. You can actually look for better things in terms of how do I connect with people and what do I look in my next partner once I'm ready for it. It's a totally different way of looking at things, which makes things even better than they were before. That's the idea. It's always growth for us. Learn from our mistakes or learn from the experiences, whether they were good or positive or negative, and then take them forward. See everything as a blessing, basically, because when we look back in retrospect, everything is always a blessing, right? Even those tough moments.
Mm-hmm. I love that. It's a process of growth. It's not a failure. We need to, what we understand as failing through life, actually, we need those experiences to learn, to grow, to keep on growing, and to develop and become the best versions of ourselves. I 100% agree with you on this, Fede. And the beautiful part of living and also failing while you succeed, because in the end, it's all about growth, it's about understanding more about yourself, is while during marriage or in relationships, oftentimes we tend to say, the problem is that you don't change this. The problem is that you don't understand me. The problem is, so everything becomes a problem in a relationship. And I love to say that if you do not know what love means, what love feels like, and you are trying the other person to give you something, you don't know what it is. You don't know what, working on giving yourself self-love, that enoughness, this lack of I'm not enough that we are going through these days. If I'm not able to feel this, how can I actually expect somebody else to give it to me? I like to say that is,
yes.
It would be very important when a relationship is going not sideways, but it's not going so well. It's important to ask the other person, what if we take the time to reflect, to work on ourselves? What if we take the time to to understand a little bit more about what is it I feel I lack, not in the relationship or how we are going at this point in time, but what is it I feel I lack. When we come from a place of lack, we come from a place of need. And if you need something from the other person, this cannot work. Something to add here is I have a lot of people actually, and they actually said to me, I need somebody in my life. I don't know how to be alone. I don't know how to be without a person. And the first response from me is, what would your life be if you no longer needed anything or anybody? What would your life look like? Your daily life look like if you actually started to trust in yourself, to believe in yourself, to grow, self-growth, self-development, see? What would your life be? And many times I feel many divorces, many couples end up in divorce. And it's precisely that. What I want the other person to do, the other person is not giving me, doing for me, when in the end is, let's work on the self individually, and then let's come together and celebrate what we have learned, what we have accomplished, so that we can continue the growth together. So
absolutely. And that question you ask people, it's beautiful. It's amazing because it empowers them to really look at themselves as a whole. And I think that's another thing that I am going to be fighting, and I'm I am actually fighting today, is the concept or the idea that we are one half of a whole. And our spouse or partner or the other half is the person who's with us in a relationship. And that's a completely wrong idea, because we are whole. We are whole as we are. We are full, amazing human beings who can do anything we want. You can be really lonely, even if you're in a relationship and you have your spouse or your partner next to you, sleeping in the bed.
100%.
And you can be alone, being by yourself, and not feel lonely. If you're okay with yourself and you know that you're whole and you know what you want. There's a lot of people that I know that they don't want to get married. They don't want to get into a relationship, and they're perfectly fine. They're happy. There's people who are in a relationship who are absolutely happy because they have someone else, but they don't need the other person to be happy. They can be happy by themselves too. And the other thing is, this comes down to two things. If you don't know what you want or what you need, then how do you know you're going to get it, and how are you going to expect other people to get it? So this is what you were saying earlier. And I think it starts from, we all have, or most of us have, this wrong idea or wrong checklist of what we're looking for in our partners when we get into our relationship. Because society, again, has actually put these ideas in our head. Depending on where you come from, I originally come from Latin America and Guatemala. A lot of the ideas that were put in our heads, even by our parents, and this is not just because they want us to fail or anything, it's just because they didn't know. They were doing the best they could. But the idea in society was, you have to go look for a wife that knows how to cook, knows how to, iron the clothes. And it's these ideas that start creating a checklist in your mind that you think, okay, this is what I need. Check, 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 check. When it's a totally different thing. And we go through that in the coaching in terms of what is it that you really need to get. And so my suggestion in this case would be, start by defining or identifying who you want to be. What is that best version of you? And when you look at the best version of you, create a list of what are the qualities or characteristics that you need in your life that are going to help you be that best version of you. And then that's going to be your checklist to look for a partner. That's going to be the checklist that is going to help you find the right person. Because if what I need is passion, someone who's driven, someone who's going to be challenging me, because this person is achieving a lot and I'm achieving and I'm competitive or things like that, that's what I need in my life. And when I look for those characteristics or qualities in a person, it's going to be like a match made in heaven, as opposed to the idea that we were always taught, if you're always out going and partying and everything, you need to get someone who's a little bit more quiet so that they can balance you out, so they can, you know, complement you. There's no such thing. And the other thing is, if you don't know what you want, and if you don't have what you need for yourself, for example, love, if you don't have self-love, if you don't appreciate yourself as you are, as a whole person, how can you give that to your partner? You can never give what you don't have. If I don't have money and someone comes over and says, can I borrow $100? If I don't have $100, I cannot give them to you. And the same thing happens for our needs as humans. If I don't have that self-love, how can I love someone? If I don't have that patience and kindness for treating myself, how can I do that to others? How can I give that to others? So we need to start working, and that's why it's very important that we focus on going inward first. We need to focus on ourselves. And once we're good, we can look at it externally, and then we can move forward.
Beautifully said, beautifully said. How can we make this relationship healthier? Well, let's take the time to make ourselves healthier, but by knowing what do I want, what do I feel I need, and then change it. And I agree with you when sometimes people say, I don't have a relationship and I want to find the perfect match for me. And the person I want has this and this and these qualities, these values. And the one thing I always tell them is, take some time for yourself, with yourself, and write down the things you really love about the other person. And once you have written down the things you love about the person you would like to meet, to be with, or to get married with, that's the intention as being a divorce coach, write it down and then become it. We have to become that which we want others to be. We have to become that which others, we pretend others to do for us, to be for us. And that's not, it's easier to understand this whole energy. And my energy, my frequency is gonna match only certain people. And if the qualities I am looking for in a person are at a higher or lower level of vibration, see, absolutely, this is what I will get. And if I see myself, I would love this person to have these core values: truth, trust, respect, integrity, and I'm not living by these core values, how can I demand this? How can I expect to meet these expectations, these people? So I love the way you put it. In order to make, how can I make this relationship healthier? How can I find this healthy relationship? Well, let's take time to work on ourselves. Once I have worked on myself, I will bring the best I have created, I am, and you can do the same, and then we shall meet and see what happens. But otherwise, as you say, it's gonna fail, and failure after failure allows you to actually understand.
And you have to think, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just saying, like, what is this then in this moment? If we ask the audience, whoever is listening to us in this moment, if we ask them, as grateful as I am for having you sharing this content, beautiful knowledge with the audience, if we ask them, where are you in your relationship today? Where are you at? Are you in a very healthy relationship? On a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being very, very healthy, how healthy is your relationship today? And once you have value or evaluated the healthiness of the relationship, ask yourself, so what about me? Different areas in my life, personal, professional, I don't know, physical, spiritual, what about me? Self-development is always important. Do I want to change? Do I feel I need to change in order to stop asking, demanding, needing anything from the other partner? So it's better to work on yourself and bring the best to the relationship, and then bring the best with the other partner. Otherwise, it might fail.
Absolutely. And I think one of the key things as well with this is we all know that our brain is going to be working based on our filters. Whatever we seek, and you know, we don't, it's something that I was reading from one of the neuroscientists and psychologists recently, was we don't see with our eyes, right? We don't hear with our ears. We actually see with what the brain wants to see. It's all our filters. So, and more so, we see with our stories. So basically, our brain has a story. It's this thing that we tell ourselves, the thoughts we have about ourselves. whether we're worth it, whether we're not worth it, whether we always end up in relationships that are troublesome or abusive, or beautiful relationships and people who actually respect us and love us. And because we do that, whenever we're seeking the next partner, we do it with our stories, with the filters that we have in our heads, which we don't even realize most of the time. And we end up in the same situation. And some people may say, oh my God, like, you know, I look for different people, but every time I end up in the same scenario. It's like same person, different name.
Yeah.
And that's because you're going through the same cycles, through the same filters, which sometimes are totally, you know, you're oblivious to them. And one of the things that we need to do is make sure that we understand, what are my filters? How do I remove those filters? Because if I use my glasses and they're all foggy, I'm going to barely see through them. I need to clean them to be able, you know, to see everything clearly and bright. And I'm going to be able to do these things differently. So it's not about you having bad luck in getting the same type of partner, or it's not that the partner is the one that ends up being the wrong one. You're the one choosing.
Yeah.
And the question is, how can you choose differently? How can you work in here to be able to choose differently? Because when you can, when you do, life takes on a different direction, and it becomes amazing. And that's one of the things that I have from my experience is I had a very clear understanding and idea of here's who my ex was and the things that were not working for us. We ended up being very different. We have a very good relationship right now. It started a little bit tough at the beginning with the usual fighting and everything. And then I said, no, I had to make a decision. I did not want my divorce to be another statistic of fighting, going through court, spending tons of dollars. And I changed it, and I was able to do that. And that allowed me also to understand from a different mindset. I was like, clear all my baggage and my filters to say, what are the qualities that I need to look for? What are the different things that I need to keep in mind? And when I went to another relationship a couple of years later, you know, starting into a new relationship, I found some things that I was really looking for in my new checklist. Mm-hmm. And as we started going into it, I also found some of the things that started coming up that I unconsciously, I guess, had picked. Mm-hmm. But when they came up in the other person, I immediately said, wait a minute, this is actually what I didn't want from my previous relationship. And I was able to call it out, have a conversation. Things ended. I moved on. And we still are friends, and we still connect. And it's not that, again, it's an all or nothing. I don't talk to you, I don't hate you. It's like, we're not best of friends. We do, if we see each other, we don't necessarily have to be awkward or feel like something is wrong because you're in the same space at the same time. We are humans. We relate to each other. We had something. We don't have it anymore. That's perfectly okay. Yes. But where I'm going with it is having the ability to start removing those filters, changing the story, which is basically the story is the thoughts we have in our heads about ourselves, about what's going on. And the moment you are able to start changing those, everything changes in your life.
Yeah. Beautifully said, and how you connected the dots. And actually, you gave your own example. So thank you for sharing the example. It's very important. We don't see with our eyes, we see with the mind. And as you say, if you have to clean the filters, well, take the time to do so. But it's also important, if I have toxic thoughts, I might end up in a toxic or not so positive relationship, or not calling it toxic. In the end, it's a different vibration. So two people not matching at the same frequency, not speaking the same language, based on how you see and perceive the world today, and how does the other person does. So I want to emphasize this as well. Sometimes people also tell us, I'm in a toxic relationship, and I have been in toxic relationships for the last 15 years. Well, let me ask you a question. Do you have toxic thoughts? Are you all day long thinking about negative things that happened in the past? Are you emotionally involved in the past in what is not, how you lack I don't know, self-worthiness, self-enoughness, and all of those things, because all these things that are clouding your life and your relationships and social life and everything else is nothing but an example, is an expression of how you think and how you feel and how are you acting, what your behavior is. So no wonder when people end up in a toxic or not so positive relationship, there is no growth. In the end, we're humans, and humans are, it's natural law. We are meant to be growing, constant growth. See, we're constantly learning from each other, learning from life. So and that's also maybe a tip for people listening to us as well, when there is no longer growth in a relationship and there is no excitement and there is none of the things you actually would like the relationship to be, ask yourself a question. What sort of thoughts am I having? And how am I feeling all day? And how, when I am actually with this person resonating or not, how am I expressing myself? Am I being the best I can be? Or am I actually only complaining and feeling this and that and whatnot? So it's, absolutely. I want to add something here that for me, I'm also a divorced woman. And for me, forgiveness, acceptance, and reconciliation were essential, but not through the divorce process. We also have a beautiful relationship with each other this time. But there was a time when I had to accept, to forgive, to reconciliate with myself. Yes. And until you don't do this in your life, through your life experiences, in a relationship or not, you shall always lack understanding. I don't want to say you shall fail at something. You're not failing, you're learning. But I encourage people to think about this. Do I have to accept, forgive, reconciliate myself for something? Because the moment you do with yourself and your past, then you shall see that you reconciliate with everything and everybody. And life changes.
Absolutely. And that's a very beautiful point, Elena, because it all starts again with us, right? We think that by not forgiving, what we're doing is we're holding the other person kind of accountable or hostage, or we're giving them the cold treatment, whatever it is. But we always think it's about them. We never think it's about us. And forgiveness, it's all about us. Forgiveness is being okay with letting go and not having to seek retribution for what someone did or didn't do to us. And in everything that happened, and I think when it comes to divorce and couples, splitting, moving apart, there could have been an event. Someone was unfaithful. They went into, getting together with someone else. Someone said something. Someone mistreated you in a certain way. I think one of the questions that I would ask, and I want to just share these with everybody. There's a couple of questions that you can ask yourself that can help you start thinking about how do we change this? Because this is one of the things that happened to me when I started going in my process, in my separation and divorce process. I was lost, I was confused, I was bitter, frustrated, and I was like, really, I didn't even know where to start. And when it comes to forgiveness, I would say everything that happened in the relationship that caused the relationship to end, and this could be marriage, this could be just a dating relationship, even a business relationship. As human beings, any relationship works like this. And what I would suggest is ask yourself two questions. The first one would be, we look a little bit about empathy, is how would you like to be treated if you were your ex? Regardless of what's going on, what issues or errors they made or they didn't make, it's good to take ourselves and put ourselves in their shoes, just to get that perspective, because we tend to think that we're always right. We're the victims. The process in itself, and again, society teaches us to blame, to always put everything on the other person. Oh, it's because whatever he did or she did, because she was always like this, because he was always saying this, because whatever. But take some time, be by yourself, take a deep breath, And just ask yourself the question, how would I like to be treated if that was me? If I was in her shoes, if I was in his shoes, how would I like to be treated, regardless of what happened? That's question number one. It's a very beautiful question. It helped me really understand a lot of things because I took myself out of my own perspective to understand the best I could. How would that be? And if it was me being in that position that I had done whatever I had done, you know, knowing how I would feel, how would that change things? And that allowed me to be showing up with my ex in a totally different way.
Okay.
And the other question is, when things actually don't work in any relationship, again, we're blaming, ask yourself these other questions. What was my contribution for that action? What was my contribution for this relationship ending? Because one of the things that we are never taught is to start taking ownership of when things go wrong.
Responsibility.
It's, again, very easy, the blaming mentality. Even when you go to court, when you're divorcing and things are not okay, the court system is a very confrontational system, is a me versus her, me versus him, us versus them. It's the moment you have comparisons, the moment you have sides, there is a big opportunity for conflict and high conflict, which is a negative conflict, to arise. And it's okay to have conflict in life. Conflict works well. It helps us grow as long as it's healthy conflict. So ask yourself these two questions. What was my contribution to that behavior? If someone ended up cheating on you, what was your contribution to getting that person to cheat on you? What did you do, or what didn't you do that person needed to seek something else outside of the relationship? Because we all have something that we have done or not done that helps in that relationship ending. And you can even look at it from when we start a relationship, we're all in, we're engaged. It's like we buy flowers, we do this, we go out for dinner, we go all out to make sure that we captivate and get the attention of the other person. And once that's done, the routine kicks in. Why do I need to do anything? Because I already got him or got her.
Yeah.
And there are things that when we look at who we were at the beginning of the relationship versus the end of the relationship, we can see how we also changed. If you had done things the same way that you did at the beginning throughout, then would you be in the same place?
Powerful questions, love them. Step into the other person's shoes, and indeed, if a relationship is not 50-50, it's 100-100. Every person should be given 100%, and something is not going the way it should be, or has ended due to whatever circumstances. Indeed, ask yourself, take ownership, responsibility. I love that. We are not being taught indeed to take responsibility for what we do or we do not do. But indeed, if a relationship changes, it's always that one question: how have I contributed to this, and how not? I want to say something in favor of everybody. There are very romantic men who, now that you pointed out flowers, and I think it's very beautiful. We are not loving as much as we used to love. I have a sense these days, especially after the last few years with COVID and so. It's very important to actually have details with yourself and also details with others, and maybe a partner, or a friend, family member. But I want to say that it's as beautiful to give flowers to your wife as it is from the wife to give flowers to the husband or somebody else, not necessarily them. I'm saying this because many times, especially women, I heard this many times, he's no longer buying flowers for me. He's no longer romantic as he used to be.
Yes.
And I love to tell these women, well, there are also some, but specifically women, why don't you for 3 months start doing the things you would love your partner to do? What would happen to you if for 3 months, day after day, you start doing everything as you would love the other person to be. And I have seen incredible things happening. And amongst them, that the other person we tend to imitate. If the drive and the will to change is there, we tend to imitate the other person. So all of a sudden somebody wakes up in the morning, I love you so much, thank you for being in my life. And the other person looks like, what happened to you? And the day after, the same happens. And if you do the test a few days later, the person, well, you didn't say anything today. Yeah, well, you see, now you start feeling. So feeling is the secret, I believe, is unconditional love is the reason, is I believe, why it's life and it's love, and it's the reason for everybody to be here, for life to exist. So let's not ask the other person, why don't you do this and buy me this? Why not me doing those things for me, for myself, and then for the other person? And as we said at the beginning, Fede, you cannot give to somebody what you do not have. And true, if you have never been taught or you have not done it before, today, in this moment, in this very moment, is a perfect day to start changing, or to start writing down the things I want to change, or the things I'm really proud of. Not only looking at what needs to be changed, but also what makes me unique, and what things do I want to keep with for the future. And this will also help. It's not about when my partner changes, I will be happy and I will be in a perfect relationship. When I change in this moment is when I will see results. And surprises, it's beautiful to surprise people. That's beautiful.
Yes, no, it's a really great point. Because again, until something changes within, nothing changes without.
That's it.
We expect the world to change, and when it doesn't, we get frustrated, we start fighting it, we close up. But when we start changing ourselves, to start doing, and as you said, you put it beautifully, in like when we start actually doing for a couple of months what we would like someone else to do for us, giving what we would like someone else to give to us, then we see a big change. Because to your point, we not only the other person starts feeling the appreciation, they know that this is it's a thing between two people as opposed to just one having to pull the whole load. And they start, it's also part of how our brain works. So this is the beauty about when we look at all of these and the kind of coaching that I do, we look at anything that is actually on how we're wired, how the brain works. And the moment you start giving, the moment you start doing things to someone, there is a part of our brain that starts, it's the law of reciprocity. Our brain actually starts feeling, and they use this in sales and in marketing a lot. The moment I give you something, you're already starting to be conditioned in your mind that you feel like you have to give something back. So it's just a natural way of how things work. And if we start giving, and if we start doing, we're going to start seeing that in return as well. And when it comes down to going through your separation or divorce, that's why I always say, be the partner you wish you had during your separation or divorce. It's not about blaming him or her that, oh, they don't want to play along, they don't want to listen to me, they don't want to work with me. How about us being the ones who start? Let me start listening and focus more on what the other person is going to, give to me or say to me, rather than focusing on what I want to say. Why not? I can actually start giving respect, providing the space for giving my ex the dignity to go through the process, because we're all hurting. I am hurting, but my ex is hurting too, even if they don't show it. How they say, hurt people hurt people. So if you think your ex is after you, it's because your ex is hurt. And when they're hurt, they're going to hurt others. And in this case, it's going to be you. So how about we start giving and doing the things that we would like our ex to be giving and doing to us? If we start with that, then we're going to bring the relationship into a different place, because our ex is going to realize, oh, wait a minute, I wasn't expecting you to listen to what I was saying.
Yeah.
I wasn't expecting you to concede something or care about me on this area. Now they automatically open up to be able to work with you because it's like, okay, now I'm good to give something back. So there are a lot of things that we do, not just because they're right, also because they work and they help us have a much better collaborative process where we can all end up in a good place moving forward. And we have to think about that.
Very important. I feel it's very important that you actually point this out. If there is no listening, if there is only talking, no listening, there's no understanding, and then there is disagreement. Is I gotta be right? No, I have to. What does it mean being right? We have different opinions. Yes. So how can by listening to each other, become to an agreement? And this, in this case, being a coach and working with a coach, can really help you. Fede, what would be? Sorry, I feel you want to say something. I was going to ask, what would be the best advice for you in this situation? But go ahead. Sorry.
Actually, no, that's exactly what it is. So thanks for asking. Yeah, because people may be thinking, okay, cool, I'm gonna listen. Does that mean I just, stay quiet or just shut up and listen? We think that listening is a very passive action or activity. And I got to tell everybody that listening is the most active thing that you can do. Contrary to popular belief, it's not just to be quiet and try to get whatever's going in. When you listen, it's about paying attention. It's about not just getting the sounds or the words that your ex is giving you. It's about looking at the body language. What is the body language telling you? So pay attention to everything. You know how sometimes you have talked to someone and say, okay, we're going to do this and let's get excited. And maybe you have kids and you say, okay, guys, we're going to do this. And the kids go like, yeah, we're going to do it, right? Or they say yes, and the eyes roll back. Like that body language tells you, even though they're saying yes, they're not buying into it, right? So it's about paying attention to everything that's going on, paying attention to the way the text messages are coming in, the emails, the conversations over the phone, everything.
This is about understanding. Sorry, I interrupted you here, but I feel this is very, very important. The conversations we are having. See, not the misunderstood voicemail or email, or I believe this is also important, the listening and active listening, but also conversations, not to get to points where there is no conversation or no understanding, but to open up, to say, bring on the table, this is how I feel. How do you feel today? Can we talk about how are you feeling? How am I feeling? Absolutely. And how can we make this work? Sorry, I interrupted you there, but I feel it's
that's a good point.
An email can say a lot of things. Written words can say things, but they can never express the feeling and the emotion that is being expressed as you communicate. So,
absolutely. And here's where I want to give some tips as well to people who may be wondering, okay, how do I handle those conversations? Because my ex then never listens. He's always yelling and it's whatever. There are a lot of different techniques that are, proven to work. This is again just psychology techniques, CBT, the behavioral therapy techniques about pattern interrupt, not only for our conversations with ourselves or the conversations with our ex, but the simplest way to start, I would say right now, is the best way to listen or to show your ex that you're listening is by asking questions. When you ask questions about what they're talking about, or simply to understand where they're coming from, why do they have certain ideas? By asking the questions, you're telling your ex and showing your ex that you're listening. And I want to further qualify this a little bit because it's not just asking any questions. I'm going to be, I want to make sure that everybody understands that we have to be very mindful with our questions and avoid why questions at all costs. I never use why questions unless they're very, very purposefully done. The reason is why, when you ask a why question, it actually lights up or triggers the part of the brain that creates reasons. It actually, in scans, they have seen that all these why questions, there's a part of our brain that creates rationalization. It comes up with all of the possible reasons for why we do stuff, why we believe in things. And whenever you ask a why question, even though you're trying to get to the root cause to prevent someone to do something that you don't like, for example, you ask your kids, why didn't you make the bed? You want to know so that you actually get them to make their bed. The moment you ask why, you're forcing the brain to come up with reasons, and your brain is going to, their brain is going to flood tons of reasons for not doing or making the bed. The same thing happens with our ex. Why did you do this? Well, they're going to come up with a lot of reasons. And believe me, they're going to tell you, and all of them are going to be related to you and something you did or something you said. So avoid why questions. Use how and what questions instead. And when you use these how and what questions, not only you're engaging and showing that you're listening and that you're interested, you're also putting yourself in a position that you're going to get the right information that you need to get. You're going to learn a lot about your ex and the way they feel and the way they're thinking. And that is also going to give you the opportunity and the information to present your own point when you're ready to talk about your position, because now you understand it and you can put it in context of that. Anybody who's in sales will probably know how this works as well, because they never want to just object or go against what they want to say. They want to take the information of the prospect and blend it in with what you just told me and what I have as a solution help you. The same thing happens in our divorce process. Ask the right questions, get the information, listen, understand it, and that allows you to even present your points, which eliminates conflict, allows for more openness and trust, and the defensiveness to come down. This is all science.
Beautiful. Not only you bring science here, but also the experience, as you have your own experience, but also your clients' experiences. And is, I want to say, not only going through divorce or not, but this active listening, asking questions, communicating, and as you said earlier, place yourself on the other person's shoes and try to understand what's going on and what not. This makes a big, big difference. Well, I think I feel that you have shared a lot of information and a lot of tips and valuable things for people who are either considering divorce, going through divorce, or the relationship is not going so well. Maybe we saved a few couples here. You never know.
Hopefully something will help at least change a little bit. And if there's that opportunity, just getting the foot in the door for a possible change, then you're into a different world and a different experience and a much better life for yourself in the moment and the moments to come.
Beautiful. So where can people find you? If anybody's interested in having a divorce coach like yourself, where can they find you?
Well, right now I'm setting a lot of these things up. I am in Instagram. It's at the Malleable Mind. I am the other one I'm actually starting to put, well, not starting to put together, I'm actually starting to promote more actively is divorce-hacker.com, where I provide some details, some information, something that is very, very accessible to people so that they can connect and start. I give some tools that allow people to start changing. So if you go to www.divorce-hacker.com, you're gonna get some of that information. Facebook is the Malleable Minds, themalleableminds.com. So I'll probably message you the information in case you want to share that as well.
Place it underneath the video. We can do that. That's perfect.
And that's where I'm at. And starting to slowly increase my presence in social media as well.
Beautiful. That would be my last question for you. What is the most beautiful experience you have live with a couple or one of your clients, what's the most beautiful experience you've gone with them as they were going through the process of divorce and you were holding their hands and you were supporting them?
Mm-hmm.
What's the most beautiful experience that you remember?
Well, it's a little bit challenging because there's many. I think the most beautiful one that I've seen the first time around, and that I then was able to see consistently repeating, is the transformation. The transformation that people have, especially moving out of the pain, the frustration, the fear, and the roller coaster of emotions that I've had. And I'll speak to one particular case in which this person was divorcing, and it was also doing it from a narcissistic person, which is even tougher. It's very challenging. And throughout the process, from being in fear, not being able to really think and focus on anything other than how am I going to deal with this? How am I going to protect myself? How the narcissistic person was impacting even the family of this person because they're very manipulative. How that person was able to change their mindset, control their emotions, and from that point forward, starting connecting with the narcissistic person differently, including how to deal with the lawyers, to then sharing with me everything this person was doing with the business, the things that they were achieving, and how things were even changing in their own peace of mind, being able to sleep at night. That was the most beautiful thing for me. The fact that they were a totally different person than in a couple of months, I couldn't recognize them. They couldn't recognize themselves from then to that point. But the ability that they had the peace of mind, they were able to sleep at night. That is what gives me fulfillment. When I can help someone get to that state from the where they were, which is where I was when I started my own separation and divorce, I was totally lost. I felt like a failure. I didn't think, anything was worth pursuing anymore, and I didn't have hopes on anything, to now thriving in my life, my business, and doing the things I love. That is what is important to me, and that's probably the most beautiful thing that I've seen. That when people think there's no way out, they can't see the light, helping them see the light and being able to not only see it, grab it, and move into it, that's what fulfills me, and that's what I think it's the most beautiful thing. So I hope that the people listening can find their own way, look at things that they can do. They may take some of the things that we shared today and start applying them, and see how that makes, even if it's a small change in their own separation or divorce process, and allows for a different type of interaction with their ex, which will give them, that peace of mind, or at least certainty that things can work and be better. Because there's so many areas, including the emotional state, as you mentioned earlier, which we didn't go into because there's no time, of course, but it's looking at it holistically. And if you start doing one tiny thing, it will allow you to do things a lot differently. If you start showing up in a different way, by asking yourself the question, how can I be the partner I wish I had during my separation or divorce? How can I start asking questions instead of just wanting to talk? How do I listen instead of just focusing on what I want to say? When you start doing these things, things are going to change. And I would just like to end it with one of my favorite quotes, with one of the ones that I love, which is from Rumi, one of the Persian poets from the 13th century. He said, it's, and it just escapes me right now. It's raise your words, not your voice. It is water that grows flowers, not thunder. So when you're going to be interacting with your ex and you're having a challenging time, raise your words, not your voice. So it's not about screaming and yelling. It's about interacting in a better way. Ask the questions. Focus on what your ex is experiencing and needing, look at giving that to him or her so you can get that in return, because it's not all of the pushing and logic and forcing that is going to change things. Is the empathy, the compassion, the respect that is actually going to make things differently. That's all I would like to share.
Beautifully said. Well, thank you for being here. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for asking people questions, and thank you for sharing your light with others, and also for others to see that there is light, that the divorce does not necessarily need to be painful, and that certainly there is a way that somebody can help you through this, and that person, that coach, may be you. So thank you very much, Fede. It was an honor to have you here today. I wish you all the best, and we shall leave the details for people to contact you under the video once I upload it later.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And thank you for the opportunity to share some of my message with everybody. And I hope that you have an amazing weekend. And I wish you the best. And thanks for having me. And thank you to everybody as well. Wish you guys all the best.
Beautifully said. Thank you very much. Take care.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye-bye.